Well, welcome everyone to DappCon and to the Circles workshop. Daniel will be leading the charge, but I will give a short introduction. Presumably, most of you are already familiar with Circles. Maybe some aren't. Maybe if you already have a Circles account, or could you raise your hands? Or the inverse? Okay. So everyone, I think, maybe has already, so then we already know a little bit. I will run quickly over some essentials, but because this is a workshop, also feel free to interrupt and ask questions. And it's not meant to be a talk. For a talk, Martin will speak tomorrow on Thursday, so you should definitely go there. Yeah, let's just kick it off. So as I was saying, I will just quickly go over some essentials, and then maybe the other part, getting everyone onboarded, is not necessary because we already are, but we'll do just a quick check. Also maybe with some quick tricks on how to dev experience setup. But and then I will hand it over to Daniel, who will talk about how you build your own wallet on Circles. What is Circles? So probably you already know it, but we want to say now that Circles is a social money. Many of you know Circles as Circles UBI, which is a very ambitious goal, and so by framing it as a social money, we emphasize that it's built together on this social web of trust. And so anyone can join. There's no questions asked. There's no KYC. Anyone can then also mint 1 circle per hour. But the critical part that's not easy to understand or novel to Circles as a money is that you can't just arbitrarily spend your circles. Normally, if you have $1 or €1, you go like, okay, I can spend this anywhere. But with Circles, we need to find a social path from you over your trust relations to the person you want to pay, and that can limit how much you can spend. And so that's also where then the foundation of Circles is based. Like, you might arbitrarily be able to mint as many circles as you want, but if you can't spend them, then fine, have your excessive circles balance. And so that's the root of it. And so that also is where the value of Circles is, because people will ask, if I can just mint arbitrary circles, then why does it have any value? We will go later in a little bit into sort of that it's not just an unlimited amount of circles that can exist, but there is also real value that you create when you maintain this social trust network, because especially it's more acute now and in going to be in the future, we have these very real, lifelike bot systems that can talk and write text before, but now they can talk and generate video. So it's very hard on the internet to know who's an authentic human being versus some AI-generated bot. And so it will be increasingly valuable that you know that you're interacting with a real human, not with some AI bot. And so this trust graph will become an increasingly valuable data asset. And so what we actually want to convey to people is that you're doing valuable work. Because if you don't trust anyone, you might have your circles, but they're not spendable. If you just on the internet go trust any account you find, you might hold your circles, but you will hold them in balances of bots that are also not spendable, because they will swap your spendable tokens out with their bot account balances. And so the analogy is a little bit like water. Like, if you don't trust enough, your water is frozen and it's not moving anywhere. But if you just carelessly go around trusting accounts, then it's like a gaseous state, and it will just fly out of your wallet. It's also not usable. But if you just go trust the people that you actually know, that you keep in touch with. Also, if you fall out of contact with people, you should prune your trust relations. In this liquid state, your money is actually liquid, right? And so that then also creates a social graph. And so just very quickly, what that means is that because this is a workshop, we want to go a little bit more in depth. So what that means is that we need to find paths between Alice and Bob. And so that also requires that we will see this in the demo, that you need to go, you can't just sign a transaction that Alice needs to send 5 circles to Bob. You need to sign a transaction over which path Alice sends those 5 circles to Bob. And to go a little bit more in detail, so imagine that these other intermediary nodes are other people that each have a trust relation with each other. Then what a path transfer is that Alice actually gives 5 circles to her friend. Then that friend under the hood moves those 5 circles forward to their friend, and ultimately we reach Bob. And so that's something that we need to account for in the architecture and also solve for. Maybe if you have questions, like happy to go into details, also like what we're doing now and in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you mentioned that there is this trust connection.
Right.
It's supposed to prevent bots from joining, which means not to trust the bot, for example, but
Right.
it seems like there only needs one person who trusts its own bots. So you know this kind of attack or...
So for the recording also, I'll quickly repeat. So, and for myself, so you're saying that if one person would trust a bot, then doesn't that now harm the whole network? And so you can think of these edges between the people having a certain capacity, and it will dry out. So say that Alice trusts a bot account. Then now this bot can pay Bob over Alice. And so say that Alice has 100 circles. For the amount of 100 circles, this bot can actually buy something from Bob. But Bob still just receives circles from people that were honest, and so for him it's fine. The only one person that actually loses the damage here is Alice, because she had 100 Alice circles that she could spend to Bob, but now she has 100 bot circles that she can't spend anywhere. Well, to the bot, but like... So she loses the spendability of her 100 circles because she indeed trusted this bot, and so she's the one impacted. But also, it's limited to that 100 circles, because now she doesn't have any circles anymore, and the bot also cannot buy more from Bob. So there is a natural capacity that drains out in the system. Other questions? I don't have so many slides, so we'll go very quickly over this. The other aspect maybe is coming back to this, every person receives 1 circle per hour, no questions asked. So like, that's roughly 8,700 something circles per year. If everyone just does this, doesn't it keep increasing the amount of circles that there are in the world? And so there is actually a balance to this that we don't often talk about because it gets more difficult to talk about, and so we want to refine these stories. But there is a temporal discounting or demurrage of 7% per year. So you could think of it as a tax of 7% of the circles you have per year. But you now have these two, and so normally, like, this sounds bad, right? Like, oh, 7% of my value gets taxed or disappears. We don't like this, but it's very different from when we have this with euros or dollars, which also arguably are at 7%, if not more, inflated. But the inflation happens in the central bank. Like, your bank account doesn't get minted new dollars when the central bank mints new dollars. They mint it for them, but you lose the 7% on dollars or euros. But here, you lose the 7% on circles, but you also get the new circles in your own account, which is a very different dynamic to start with. And if you then take those two terms out, you actually get, as an illustration, this curve. They max out, or they balance each other rather, around 125,000 circles. Because if you have no circles, then 7% of 0 is 0. But at 125,000, 7% is this 8,700 circles that you get per year, so then you have a natural balance point. And so if you start minting your circles, then you will increase, first sort of get those 8,700, but as you have more, you pay more 7% tax, so it actually starts flattening out, and you have this balance point. If you then stop minting circles, you only have the 7%, so it will go down as in the second part of this curve. But what this really means, and what I think is a really interesting story, is that it's effectively a more honest distribution system. Because if you're a human, you get negatively taxed until you have under 25,000 circles, because you have this constant mint that happens, and so the less money you have, the more you receive. And then up to this balance point. And then if you earn circles because you're active within the community, you will slightly get taxed more. But yeah.
But if I send out my circles to another wallet, will they also be taxed?
Yes, like because it's part of the protocol, so it doesn't matter where you. Yeah. There's no escaping this taxation system. But also for like AIs or bots or companies, they can earn circles, but they don't have a mint because we wouldn't trust them to as a human. We would go like, no, I know you're a bot. I know that. I mean, in a one-to-one relation, and so they have a flat tax of 7%. So humans get this negative tax, but companies and bots get a flat tax of 7%.
It also happen if I bridge it out from Gnosis chain.
So. I mean, it's a workshop, so let's go a little bit more in depth, right? So there's two ways that you can implement this, with an on-chain demurrage or with an inflationary model. So typically, dollars or euros, we have an inflationary model because you have the same amount of euros in your bank account tomorrow, but they're just like in the central bank printed more euros, so your actual purchasing power of your euros went down. Right, that's the inflationary model. The demurrage model is where we rebalance, we readjust all the numbers everywhere to actually go down, and so your purchasing power is more stable, which is the default model we have here. If you'd want to bridge it over, you would want to use circles in the form of the inflationary unit, and then the answer is still the same. The only way you could bridge it over sensibly is in this inflationary representation, and then you will move 5 circles over, but they will be less because the total amount has grown on the Gnosis chain as well. So yeah, you will still have exactly the same 7% effect. So when you come back with those, say, 5 circles that you bridged out, you will find that they are now worth less in the original system. Yeah, sorry. So anyway, yeah, so this also just answers this question. Like Bitcoin originally was very utopian, and it was a nice story back in the day for having a hard currency that wasn't debasable. But now we have roughly 21 million Bitcoin in the world, and we also know who has those 21 million Bitcoin. Like, it's definitely not me. And so I'm not very motivated to build a system on Bitcoin because I'm not, I mean, yeah, well, let's leave it there. Whereas here, like, there's a more sensible long-term dynamics to the system. It doesn't matter when you join circles. It doesn't matter whether you were there long. You just, I don't know if I can go back one slide. Yeah, it doesn't. This curve starts at an arbitrary point. It doesn't matter if you are born 3 generations in the future. You have the same dynamics, and there's not like a wealthy older class that already just has all the coins because they keep rebalancing over time. Oh, now I moved in reverse. My clicker. Anyway, I'm at the end of my slides, I think, already. So I do want to acknowledge we started as a small team more recently, and we'll propose some both on the technical side, but also try to help move forward the story and invite more people to build on circles. And that's really something that we want to enable, is like, how do we also have more digital services being built on circles, not just real life vendors, but also build it into our protocols. But having said that, we really want to see ourselves as ambassadors, because there's many groups, and actively actually many different groups around the world. We keep discovering them by chance, of people that have engaged and are engaging with these ideas and want to help build them forward. So if you have your own ideas, it's a very open space. Happy to collaborate or independently work on things, or just to move this vision forward. I don't know if I had more slides. No, I did not. So I don't know if people have questions maybe first. And then second question would be, does anyone not have a Circles account set up? And then do people have a laptop or something ready? Because in the coming section, we'll try to code a little bit together, or at least go through how you could go about it. Okay, I'm asking the questions too fast. Does everyone have a Circles account set up? Yeah, it's okay. This is just to make sure that we don't have people leave here without having a Circles account. This is disconnected from. This is just pure me trying to be a good marketer and having sign up. But so if you have questions on setting it up or need trust connections, this is obviously a place where you can ask them. But then I'll hand it over to Daniel. And so maybe before I do that, if you scan this, am I right about this URL? Is that public now?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, yeah. So if you scan this QR code, then or just go to the URL if you prefer typing, then that's a GitHub repository that has a whole code of where we want to get to in it. So if you miss steps, you can find it there. But we'll try to go through it step by step together, and then we'll see how far we get. Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Cool. So I will take over the next section of the workshop, and we will do some hands-on coding. Yeah, I will give you a little bit of time to all arrive at this URL. I have to go there myself. It's github.com about circles, and then here in the repository list, it's the first entry, Circles Code Quest. And our objective for the workshop is to build a simple Circles wallet. Circles needs much more integrations in other products, web shops, and whatnot. And we're currently building an SDK to allow people to easily integrate Circles into their own software. And I will give you a brief tour of the SDK so far in this workshop. So we have some prerequisites. We will have MetaMask installed in the browser. You will need Node.js and NPM. And since the application will be built with Svelte, a Svelte plugin for your IDE or code editor, I think is a really nice to have. Further, you will need some XDAI because we will not use a relayer and pay for the transactions ourselves. So there's a faucet for Gnosis chain. If that doesn't work for any reason, I set up a pad where you can add your wallet address, and that might take a while, but I would send you a small amount of XDAI just to get started. Maybe anyone who doesn't have any XDAI yet, raise their hands so that I know how many people. Okay, there's already one. It's one, okay. So for you in the README of the repository, I added a link to the pad. Just add your MetaMask address there, and then I will send you some. Okay, so give you a little bit of time to make sure that you have the prerequisites set up. Yeah. Oh, sure. So yeah, how do we start? I already created a UI mockup and linked the routes with each other so that we can click through the single routes and get a feeling of what we are going to build. I also have a finished application here. It all starts from the homepage. It's just a welcome screen to get started. Then we can connect our MetaMask. And once we did that, we see our wallet address, our current circuits balance, a transaction list, have the possibility to mint our personal circuits, which is basically our 1 circle per hour. We will have a screen to send circuits, a list of our trust connections, because circuits is all about trust, and a small settings screen that just shows our circuits address and our personal token address. To get started, I will ask you to check out the Circles CodeQuest repository. There are 9 branches within. We will start with the Create UI Mockup branch. So once you have cloned the repository, please check out the corresponding branch. I hope this is large enough. Okay, so once you're in the branch, we need to run npm install, and after that we can run npm run dev and bring up the browser with the bare bones application. So that's already clickable, but it doesn't contain any logic. As you can see, everything here is empty, and we're going to implement the single features now step by step. So maybe a short introduction about into the repository contents. Oh yeah.
Also, is everyone up to date, like with the account and cloning the repository?
Looks good. So for those who are not familiar with SvelteKit, a really brief introduction on how the routing works. So the routing is folder-based. We have this routes folder, and basically any subfolder I connect in this will, I add to this will form a route. So to access the dashboard, I just go to /dashboard and we will be at the dashboard route. So there is a layout with just an, oh, I have to increase the size. Okay. So there's a header when we are not signed in. It's a default header that just shows the Circles logo. Once we are signed in, we want to show the avatar info, which we have seen previously, which contains the Circles address and the balance. And then here's a slot where the main page will be inserted. So we start with the start page. It only contains a button that brings us to the Connect Wallet page. So if we want to switch pages in SvelteKit, we can use this go-to function and just specify the route as an argument. Let's see if that works. Going to the home page, click Get Started, and we will get to the Connect Wallet page. So far we haven't implemented anything. Next step is to add and initialize the Circles SDK. So we are going to the package.json and we'll add that here. It's add Circles SDK, so that's the NPM organization, and we want to include the SDK package. Current version is 0.043. My IDE will install that. Okay, so now that's installed. Everybody installed the dependencies already? I'll give a minute. After installing the dependencies, we should restart our development server. Go back to the page and verify that everything is still working. Looks good. Okay. So now we need to initialize the SDK, and we want to do that on the Connect Wallet page where we connect our MetaMask account. Yeah, so I already prepared some Svelte stores. Svelte stores, for those who don't know it, are like global variables. So we will put an SDK instance into a global variable, just that we have it on every page. And once we connected the wallet, we will also put the wallet provider on a global object so that we can access it from the other pages. Let's change the type or just remove it. So on the Connect Wallet page, there is already some code that will connect to the window Ethereum object, which is MetaMask in my case. Once we have that, we get the signer from the wallet browser provider and assign it to this global variable. And after that, with the signer, we want to initialize the Circuits SDK. So I have a template method here that needs to be implemented. And we just import the SDK from the Circuits package. And immediately have an error. Oh yeah. Okay. So once we have the import, we can just create a new instance, just by creating new, and we see that it requires a chain config, so we need to configure the Circuits SDK because maybe we want to run it on Chiado, the Gnosis test chain, or on a local chain. In this case, we want to go for Gnosis mainnet. So let's see if I already have settings. No. Okay. So what it will need is a Circuits RPC URL. That's basically just a JSON RPC endpoint, but with a Circuits plugin installed so that we can access the transaction history, trust relations, and whatnot. And we have such a thing installed at rpc.helsinki.aboutcircuits.com. The next step is we will need the hub address. Let's Google that. Yeah, that's the right one. And another service that we will need later is the Pathfinder. So the Pathfinder finds the trust path through the trust graph and allows us to do transactions. We installed one at Pathfinder aboutcircuits.com. And the rest is not relevant for now, but we just set a value to make TypeScript happy. And then the second argument is the signer we just got from MetaMask, and which we stored to the global wallet variable. Oh yeah, that shouldn't be null. So, okay. Yeah, once we initialize the SDK, we can just return it and see how it's used. So let's go back to the start page. Oh, an error. Did we miss a comma? Oops. Where's that? Interesting. Okay. So if we check our MetaMask, I was already connected, that's why it didn't pop up on your side. If you connect for the first time, MetaMask should pop up, and yeah, you have to enter your password, and then we have this fav icon here to indicate that we connected actually to the application. Are there any questions so far or any problems? No? Okay, then
If you're running behind, like me, which branch are we?
right now we are working on the add and initialize circles SDK branch. So if you want to skip ahead, you can just check out that branch directly. So that's that one. And I also added a link to the diff so that you can follow along what changed between the steps.
So the branch is the complete
The branch is the complete thing.
completion of the
Yeah, so we are currently in create UI mockup and are working on add and initialize circuits SDK. Okay, actually, we finished that step more or less. There's only one thing to do. Since it could happen that our wallet was already signed up or is already signed up at Circles, we don't want to bring the user to the sign up page if the user is already signed up. So we have to add one check to see if the connected wallet is actually already a Circles wallet. And since we added the SDK instance here to the Circles global variable, I can just use that to check if the avatar exists. Oh, it's the wrong type. Yeah, we have to replace the mock type that was in the store with the actual SDK. So we get rid of the type error. And yeah, so this is the first time we have a look at the SDK object itself that has some properties. Currently we are interested in the data because we want to query for an address if that address is already signed up. So we access the data property and call get avatar info, pass in the address, and store the result in a variable. Let's call it avatar info. That's an async function, needs to be awaited. And once we have the avatar info, we can be sure, okay, there's already an avatar signed up because get avatar info will return undefined if it can't find the avatar. So with this to-do out of the way, let's see if that works. So the effect we are expecting here is if the avatar is already initialized, then we go to the dashboard, and if it's not, we go to the register page. Let's see if that works. I have my account already registered here, at least with that one, so I would expect to get to the dashboard page, which looks like it works. Now we can also test the opposite case. I just create a new account and use that. That's not connected. Interesting. We still got to the dashboard. Which is not expected. Okay. We have some time to debug. Oh, maybe it's working, and that's already registered. No. Let's try a new one. Oh, interesting. So I hope you have some time to catch up while I'm debugging. So actually, is that the address? No. Okay, FE. Yeah, that's the right one. Okay, in this case, I would expect a response that I'm actually signed up, which I'm not getting. So this is not correct. Oh. Yeah, I think that's the issue. We return undefined, and I did a type safe check for null. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, with that out of the way, we can go back to our page and add the last line of code for this step. So if we already have the avatar, then we want to add that to our global variable. Yeah, that we need to use the next SDK function, which is actually, if we already have an avatar, there's a get avatar function where we can supply the wallet address, and it will return an avatar instance. If we don't have an avatar, we will go to the register page where we will create a new one. So that's it for that step. I will go and check out the same branch as you guys have. Actually, I can do it here. So, okay. Let's go back. So everything is implemented and continue with the register page. So here on the register page, we only have one thing to do. We need to sign up a new avatar at Circles with the connected wallet. In Circles, there are two different account types. Today, we will only care about the personal Circles account. As Ben mentioned before, there are also organization accounts which are intended for companies or whatnot. Today, we are going with a personal account. So in order to create a new avatar, we have to access our Circles SDK, again on our global variable. And instead of get avatar for an existing one, we call register human. The other option would be register organization. Both return a so-called avatar interface, and they behave more or less the same, with the difference that an organization cannot mint personal tokens while a human can. It's an async method, so we have to await it. And let's try that. So here you will need some XDAI on your wallet. So if you don't have any yet, you should transfer that now. I will just send 10 XDAI cents. And also have a look here. So let's wait a bit until all the transactions went through. Okay, and with our account now funded, let's switch back to the right one. 29. Yeah, so 10 cents on this account. With the account now funded, I should be able to register as a person. Oh, there's an error. Wallet is not connected. Yeah, we always have to start from the front page. And let's try it now. Okay, MetaMask opens, get a signing request, send us sign up to the hub contract. And it's the right account, so let's do that. Okay, the transaction is confirmed, and yeah, so that worked, or at least seemed like. We now have an avatar instance created by Register Human, and after that we are going straight to the dashboard where we will in the next step implement a transaction list because personal tokens, personal accounts get a sign-up bonus. So we will immediately see one transaction after sign up. Let's see if we get this to show up. The next branch is register at Circles. Or actually it's, yeah. Check out. Okay. So we move on to the dashboard page where we want to show first our current balance, not the transaction list, of course. So yeah, here in the header we have currently a balance shown of 0 circles, which doesn't seem to be right. Let's fix that first. The header is in lib components and we have an account info header. Yeah, so here are just 2 hard-coded properties that need to be set. We should by now have our global avatar instance, which we got from the register page. So it's stored on this avatar store, and we hope that we can utilize it here to get the actual balance of our avatar. First we have to remove the mock interface and replace it with the real one. So that's in the avatar store. Now we get the right fields. And we want to get the total balance of that avatar, and so we can just call the get total balance method. Actually, that's a promise. So yeah, Svelte has this nice syntax for variables that auto-update. They just are introduced to the $sign, and we will use that one. So what this does is the balance variable will be updated whenever the avatar is updated. So initially we don't have an avatar. After sign up or registering, we have one. So this variable will be set, and in turn the get total balance method will be called on that avatar instance. Let's do the same for the address. Okay, and since this is a promise, we have to await the promise here. Svelte also has some nice helpers to do that. We say await balance. While we are waiting it, we say, balance is loading. And then once we have the balance, we show it. We don't care about errors right now, so let's keep it like that. Okay, so what we have now is our promise from the avatar. We await it here in our template, show a loading message. Once we have the balance, we show it. So we would expect that to work now. Let's start again from the start page. Connect our wallet. And actually, now we can see the balance of our avatar and the avatar address. The avatar address matches the one in MetaMask. Yep. Okay, that's a first step. Yeah, now we want to show the transaction history, now that we have the balance. And let's check out that state. And go back to the dashboard page where we will implement getting the transaction list. So very much like with the balance, we get our transaction list from the avatar again. And there's a method called getTransactionHistory. This is meant to be paginated, so it expects us to set a page size. We just go with 25 for now and don't implement the pagination, just show the first page. Okay. So yeah, it will return a circles query. Let's call it transaction history. Okay. So the query is already executed once we get it from the get transaction history call, so we can just show the current page. If we would have multiple pages, we can just call query next page, and then the current page would have the contents of the next page. We, for this example, just display the first page. And to do that, we just assign the rows from the current page to our rows array here. There we have a type issue. Let's remove that. Undefined. Okay, and that also should be typed to actual result type, which is a transaction history row. Oh, okay. In the meantime, our package has changed. We initially only added the Circles SDK package, but there are more. So we have the Circles SDK data package where all the row types are in, and there are the utilities where we come to later. So please, if you checked out the branch, run npm install again to also fetch the missing 2 packages. Once we have that, we should be able to import it here. Yeah. Okay. That's weird. Okay, I see what I'm missing. Language tag, it thought it's JavaScript, but it's TypeScript. Now it compiles. So if we've done everything correctly, we should get our first 25 transactions. Actually, the newly created account will only have one so far. Let's start our app again. Connect the wallet. And we see our first transaction, which is the so-called sign-up bonus. Directly after registering a human avatar, the Circles Hub will pay out, in this case, 117 circles as a sign-up bonus. And this is what's displayed here. So cool, now we have the balance and the transaction history displayed. I think it's nice to add more transactions to it. One easy way to do that would be to do another personal token minting, which is currently not implemented and which we will just do in the next step. So please check out the show transaction history branch to get to the same state. Any questions so far, or is anyone lagging behind? Okay, fine. Okay. Yeah.
Why 117?
117. Why 117 sign-up bonus? Yeah, we will come to that point a little later when we invoke the Pathfinder. There's a little history of circles and time circles. So circles started out as an inflationary unit. Just as Ben explained previously, we have this demurrage representation where basically your balance loses value over time, and we have this inflationary representation where the total supply is raised and your balance stays the same. So circles started out in the inflationary system, and then at one point we decided to make it a demurrage-based system. So actually how the demurrage is implemented in Circles v1 is just, it's a display method. So we calculate the demurraged value based on the current time, and we do that in the SDK or in the front end. Basically, it's not on-chain demurrage. With the next version of Circles, the default mode will be on-chain demurrage, and your balance will really demurrage on-chain. And there is an inflationary wrapper token if you, for instance, want to add your tokens to a liquidity pool or whatnot, and that can't handle the demurrage, then you can wrap your token to an inflationary token and use that. But for version 1 of Circles, everything is inflationary, and the demurrage is just a display option. So that's why the factor currently yields 150 circles, which was originally 50 inflationary circles. So that's why it's not a round number. Okay, so let's implement minting personal tokens. That will be a very quick step. We go back to the dashboard page where we have the mint button. You can see here mint circles and a to-do mint to personal circles. So again, we can just access our global avatar object, and it already gives me the completion, and call personal mint. This is, of course, also async, so we need to await it. And yeah, let's give it a try. Okay, we get a signing request. Transaction confirmed. So since we haven't implemented any update logic for our UI yet, we have to switch the page one time to see the new transaction. And as we can see, new tokens have been minted to our account. So that's already pretty good. We verified that our transaction list is working. We can mint personal circles, of which we get 1 per hour. So looks like a few minutes have passed since our account creation. If that would be 1 hour, we would have exactly 1 token here. Now it's 0.21. Yeah, with the minting in place, we should go to our next point, which is adding trust. So circles cannot be transferred without any trust relations, so we need a way to trust other people, and for other people to trust us, and obviously also a way to show who we are trusting and who's trusting us. Let's check out the Mint Personal Tokens branch to get on the same page and start implementing the trust part. Yeah, we have that on the contacts page. And since we don't have any trust relations right now, this is a new account, maybe we should first implement adding trust to other people. So we have a sub route, contacts add, and in this page there's a trust method which we want to implement. Maybe let's have a look at the form first. If we click here, add trust, we are expected to add another circles address, and then we just hit the trust button and see what happens. So we are using our global avatar object again, and this time the trust method. And we already used the Svelte binding from this input element to the trust address variable. We also have a small validation logic using ESS.js, checking if the address is actually an address, and that will set the trust address as valid variable, which in turn enables and disables our button. So currently it's disabled. If we would going to trust ourselves, we see it's enabled. Yeah, async method again. We want to trust the trust address, needs to await that too. And once our trust call was successful, we are going back to the contacts page. So now we need a different address to trust. I will trust my other Circles Garden wallet. You could trust your wallet or basically any other wallet. Okay, let's see if that works. Okay, I think we successfully added a trust relation. Now, page still empty, we need to show it. So let's move back to the contacts page and find the onMount function and yeah, implement getting the trust lists. So just as before in the dashboard, we have a list here and the list has rows. And on loading of the page, we just add the result to the rows. So let's do the same here, but for the trust relation. Use our global avatar and ask it for the trust relations. So this will give us all trust relations of the avatar. Trust relations can be incoming, outgoing, or mutually trusting. Let's see how that looks like in the result. Oh. Didn't await it. That's not a page result. It will just give us a list. So yeah, and I also had this mock type here, which we need to remove in order to import the correct one.
Can you, in the stores, in your stores file, can you quickly show what's there? Because
For the avatar?
there does need to be more code here in the store.
Okay. Yeah, maybe a quick look at the stores, which are the global variables. So we have this avatar, which we are initializing in Connect Wallet or on sign up. Then we have the balance, which we used in the header and are initializing in the header. Circuits is the instance of the Circuits SDK, and we have wallet, which contains just our signer. So that's an ESA signer. Circuits contains our Circuits SDK instance. Avatar contains the avatar interface, which... Okay, I think we have another type issue here. Let's cast that empty array to some trust relation rows. Okay. Okay, with the loading of the trust relations in place, we should see something. And indeed, we are just not what we were expecting. And the issue is we're using the wrong row template, so we're still using the transaction row for trust relation, so it has wrong properties. Let's change that to contact row. And see if that works. Yeah, that looks better. So we have this arrow, which signifies that that's an outgoing trust. We see who we are trusting and when that happened. As you can see, we have some quick action buttons. One should remove the trust relation if we don't want to trust this person anymore, and another one will bring us to the transfer page in case we want to send some circles to that person. Let's check if the trust removal works. No, it doesn't, so we need to implement that next. For that, we go to the contact row, because these buttons are defined here. Here we supply the row that should import the right type. Import the row which contains a subject avatar, which is basically me, an object avatar, which is the other avatar, and then the relation between the two, which can be I'm trusting that other avatar, that other avatar is trusting me, we are mutually trusted, and self-trust is a special case. Let's continue with removing the trust, because that's the button we can see right now here. In order to remove a trust relation, we again go to our avatar and not call remove trust, but untrust. And then we need to specify who we want to untrust. So in this case, this is the avatar we were showing in the list item. This is an async function. Again, we need to await it. So let's see if it works. Okay, so we need to change the page just to reload it, and we see our trust relation is gone. Let's check that in our wallet here. Okay, let's try the opposite direction. We previously trusted from this wallet to this wallet, and now I want to change the direction and trust from my Circles Garden account to my newly created wallet and see if it shows up. That might take a while. Actually, there it is. So this time the direction of the arrow changed, signifying that this is an incoming trust relation. We have a different button here this time, because previously we added a trust relation to the other party, so we were able to remove it. In this case, they trusted us, so we should be able to trust this person back. This is not yet implemented. Let's go back to the contact row to do that. And again, use our avatar object. And this time, instead of untrusting, we are trusting that object avatar in our row. Let's see if that works. Okay. We have to reload the page. So now we can see we have a mutual trust relation. And that should be also shown in Circuits Garden, yeah. Cool, so now that we have mutual trust relations, we have a target where we can actually send to. This is not yet implemented, but this will be the next and final step in the wallet implementation. So in order to follow along, please check out the show and add trust branch. Okay. So yeah, next is implementing the transfer. Transfer is interesting. It's the point where the pathfinder comes into play because we need to find a route to our destination. So in order to implement it, let's switch to the transfer page or send page, how I called it. Okay, and here at this position, we want to invoke the pathfinder to find a path for the maximum transferable amount. Depending on your trust relations, it might happen that you cannot always send the full amount. So in this case, we have 117 circles, but depending on our trust network and the distance to our recipient, it could happen that our capacity is limited. So what we need to do before sending the transaction is to notify the user about the maximum amount that he can send. And
Even if it's a direct trust relation,
in a direct trust relation, usually it should be that the recipient can receive all your tokens. But actually, there are some limitations hard-coded in the contract, which are by some considered as a bug, by others as a feature, which limit your capacity based on your own balance. So in the current implementation, it could happen that if you run out of your own tokens, you might not be able to receive new tokens. This is a known bug, and we need to work around it a little bit. But yeah, your capacity of CAC that you can receive depends on your own balance and also on the trust limit that you can set when you establish a trust relation. So we established our trust relation, or the SDK establishes the trust relation by default with 100%. But older wallet implementations by default used only 50%, which also limits the flow between the different accounts. So in version 2, we got rid of that trust percentage and replaced it with a binary trust relation. So you either trust or you not trust. And also it's not balance dependent anymore, but this will be for version 2. Right now we have to live with the trust limitations.
and it's a limit per day or
It's a limit per edge, basically. So between two different accounts or multiple accounts, on each edge is an individual limit, which is based on your current balance and the trust limit. But we will see how much we can transfer just in a moment. I think here in this case, since we trusted 100% and both accounts have a balance, we should be able to send the full amount. Let's see. Move back to the transfer page. And we check out our avatar object, where we find a getMax transferable amount method. We need to specify where we want to send to. In this case, it's the recipient. And this will return a promise. So we need to await the promise here in Svelte again, show loading texts, and format the amount just with 2 decimal places. Let's check if that worked. And it looks like it does. So now we see, maybe let's go back to our trust relations and try that again. So now we see this is loading and internally invoking the pathfinder. And we now get a max amount that we can send of 50.09 circles, which is a bit suspicious because I think here the time circles component comes into play. So the pathfinder by default returns the inflationary value. And if we remember that our initial transaction here is actually 50 circles in inflationary values and 117 in the Mirage values, it is very likely that we show the inflationary value here. And this will happen sometimes because the inflationary values are the values that are stored on chain. And whenever you do an RPC call or get that from an indexer, you will need to convert that to time circles in order to show it to a user, because else users will be very confused about the differing balances, for instance, that they can see in the Circuits Garden app versus your app. So we need to convert this value into time circuits. And there should be a method to do so in the SDK. It's called CRC to TC, which stands for circuits to time circuits. We need to import that. It's from the utils package. And since time circuits are a time-dependent unit, we will need to supply the current timestamp, which we do as a date object. And then we want to add the max amount, which in this case is not a promise. Okay. Big int. Yeah, we need to do some parsing foo. Because the max amount that we are getting is in inflationary units in Y, and we want to display that as a decimal value, so we use Ether's format Ether method to convert Y to Ether. Then this method, oh, actually we don't need that. Sorry, I changed the SDK last minute. Let's just pass in the big int. Okay, nice. Could be undefined. Okay, then let's go with a default. Okay, we need to connect the wallet again. Go to our contacts, press send, and now we can see the value is actually our balance. So we are able to send our whole balance to that user because we have this mutual trust relation with 100% and both accounts are funded. Let's go with 10. And okay, we haven't implemented the send functionality yet. Let's do that. There's an issue. Okay, to send circuits from A to B, we also go to our avatar object and call the transfer method. We need to specify where we want to transfer to, which is the recipient, and we also need to pass in a value, which is also again in inflationary units. So our value string will need to be converted to time circuits, from time circuits to inflationary circuits, where we have a helper method, CRC to TC, which also takes the current date. And this value is a number as far as I know. Oh, that's the wrong. we need to use TC to CRC, sorry, and that expects a number. And since we have a text, we have to pass that first. I think message, await. Okay, so let's recap. We call the transfer function on the avatar, supply the recipient. Since we are working in the front end with the time circles units and display them everywhere, we also expect the user to enter time circles. So we need to convert the time circles to inflationary circles because that's what's used on chain. Therefore, we pass our string to a float, supply it there, and then we get back our inflationary units. Let's see if that worked. We should be able to send 10 circles. Confirm. And let's see if that arrives here. Okay, let's reload. Oh yeah, okay, we got our 10 circles, and we should also be able to send them back. Let's try that. Send our 10 circles back. Oh. Interesting. That doesn't work. Okay. Let's see in our transaction history if it's actually shown. Yeah. Okay. We see our personal mints and 10 circles sent out to this address. Actually, I want to receive some now. Yeah. In order to receive circles. I need to trust the other account, so in that case I did that. But let's try a different account. Maybe my real personal circles account, who's now trusting my fake account. Oh. We discover some issues. As you noticed, we don't have a username or a profile picture in our wallet application. This is because currently there's only one database in Circles Garden which actually manages the user accounts, and that's not available via the SDK right now, so we are just going with the addresses here. Yeah, unfortunately that doesn't seem to work like expected, but at least we can send from our wallet to other accounts. That works and is actually the last step in our implementation. So we can continue a little bit with auto-updating the UI. Maybe we do that because it's not a nice UX if we need to reload the page whenever we do a transaction. And it also displays a few features of the SDK regarding event handling. So maybe let's start with the trust relations. But first, any questions so far? So to recap, we initialized the Circles SDK, registered a new account, showed a balance and transaction history. We minted personal tokens. We allowed to add and display trust relations, and we calculated a transfer path and transferred circles from A to B. Are there any questions at that point? No? Okay. Yeah, then let's have another look into the event handling of the SDK. So the goal for that is, if we remove this trust relation here, for instance, we want to auto-update our UI to reflect that change. And to do that, we need to listen to the events that are emitted by the Circuits Hub contract. And the SDK provides a few methods to do so. So let's go to the trust page or contacts and subscribe in on-mount to the necessary events. So actually our avatar has an events property, and that contains an observable which we can subscribe to. And it will yield events, avatar events to be precise. And now the idea is whenever we receive an event, we want to update our UI. So an avatar event can have multiple types. In this case, we are looking for trust events. So these are the same names that the smart contract uses. So you can look them up in either the code or in Block Scout. Right now I'm doing this out of my head. I know it's the trust event, so I just filter for trust events. And what we want to do if we receive a trust event is we want to update the UI. Let's see if that worked. So we would now expect, after establishing trust, that the icon changes and signifies that we now have a mutual trust relation. And that worked. And yeah, maybe we want the same for the transaction list, and that should be actually the last step of our journey. Let's go to the dashboard, add the same logic here. Here we are looking for multiple events. One is called transfer, and it's the personal minting. Or it could be a hub transfer event, which is a person-to-person transfer. And we want to refresh the transaction history in that case, so we just copy and paste that code here and see if it works by minting. Okay, that worked. A little time has passed, so we got some new UBI, and that's it for the workshop. So I think you've seen the basic functionality of Circles wrapped in the SDK. Please note that the SDK is still a preview and subject to change. So if you plan to do substantial work with Circles and need a more stable SDK, you either need to wait for the official release or just approach me or anyone else from the team to get in touch and talk about how to handle your needs. And other than that, that's it for now. I hope I could show you how to integrate Circles into your applications, and we hope to see shop integrations and further wallets soon. Thank you very much. Any questions? Sure.
This SDK will work also with Circles 2.0.
Yeah, the question was if the SDK will also work with Circles 2.0, which is the upcoming Circles version, which is near completion. Yes, so there will be an update to the SDK, and the interface will remain largely the same. So there will be some minor differences. For instance, Circles v2 adds a new account type, which is the group type, additionally to to the personal and organization account. So these will be added, but minting, transferring, and all the other stuff will stay the same interface-wise. So also there will be a migration method to migrate your V1 accounts to V2. So everything you start building with the V1 SDK right now will continue to work with minor modifications also with the V2 contracts.
Noob question. Obviously, all that you showed us is happening on Gnosis.
Yeah, it's everything on Gnosis chain. So we can configure it to use other chains, but since the deployment of the Circles contracts is on Gnosis chain, it doesn't make too much sense to use other chains, other than for testing reasons. So, for instance, while developing the SDK, I used the local Ganache chain, and then you can. I don't know if the screen is still shared, but yeah, you can basically specify other contract addresses and other RPC endpoints for the SDK, but usually, in most cases, you would just stick to Gnosis. Oh, here it is again. So let's go back to the configuration. That was in Connect Wallet. Or was it? Here. In this thing, it's yeah, in an object. So yeah, you have this chain config object, and you can specify different Pathfinder instances, RPC URLs, and also the contract addresses. But this is mainly meant for local testing on a local chain.
And is there any hope that we see Circles, for example, on CoinMarketCap, to actually see the token?
The Circles token itself, since it's a personalized token and everybody can create their own, it's not really listable on DEXs or anywhere else. But there will be group currencies in the upcoming version. So how these work is people can use their personal tokens as a collateral and mint group tokens in exchange for that. So if I deposit one token at a group contact, I can get one group token in exchange. And these tokens, since they just have one address and can group multiple persons, can very well be listed on DEXs, etc. So I hope we will see quite some tokens emerging via the new group feature.
But what's an example of a group token?
This could, for instance, here in Berlin are many alternative co-ops. And for instance, if you have kind of a circular economy within your co-op, so you have freelancers that are working with each other or whatnot, and they can pay themselves in Circles, then you have basically a group of many people using Circles, but if they want to transact with people outside that group, you will most likely want to do that via fiat money. So the idea would be that the group lists their group tokens on a DEX, and people would buy the group tokens with euros and use these group tokens to pay people in the collective. So this way you get a backing for the group tokens, and if the group accepts the group tokens as internal currency, then you can have really nice economic activity around that.
Okay, that sounds like bootstrapping the thing, but could it not be another way where the Circle, like you guys, make it so that, I don't know how, by incentivizing so the spreading of the token so that it becomes of... Because when I look now at CoinMarketCap and I don't see CRC, I wonder, I have many questions, and I say, is this legit or no? So I understand that this is really coming bottom up. But I wonder.
Yeah. So it's really bottom up, and since everybody can create their own tokens and mint basically as many as they want, so if they have a botnet, the only thing that protects you against that is the web of trust. It's not practical to use the individual tokens in DEX scenarios, but for groups, that's very well possible, and I think we will create some Circles groups as well. But it's really meant as a feature for the people out there to create their own groups. So I think we will have a group for our wallet development, for instance, and maybe for other associated parts.
Last input. There's another token that has to, what's it called, like proof Is something human of Gnosis, or
Humans of Gnosis,
what's
yes.
the relation with? Is that the right name? And what's the relation?
That's actually a group currency. So version 1 of Circles, which is the version I showed today, also has a group feature already, but it's an additional contract that registers as an organization in the trust graph. So it's not very well integrated into Circles, but it was a first test group that was created and was actually backed with GNO tokens, or is still. And yeah, that's the very first asset-backed
So the
Circles
CRC
group.
human of Gnosis and GNO token. It's not easy to wrap your head around it, but yeah, I understand that we are building it. So thank you.
I just wanted to add to your question, but you already brought up the Humans of Gnosis, and I think that's definitely a group we want to continue. I don't, and it might have a valuation on DEXs, but I don't think it will feature soon in CoinMarketCap because it's not going to have a market capitalization of hundreds of billions of dollars. So. I mean, I don't know how many Humans of Gnosis are going to, yeah. I would just not, I don't think that's the expectation we're trying to build for, is to reach the top 10 of CoinMarketCap with any particular group. Like, I mean, yeah. Even if all groups together are significant, maybe then, but they wouldn't add up necessarily together. So I think you will see circles in DEXs, but not listed in CoinMarketCap. So that's inevitably, I think, an expectation that we should try to work with. Yeah.
Never say never.
But just to finish, can it not be a world where one angel investor of some sort say, okay, this is actually really cool. I want to bring visibility from Berlin to the world. Let's put some angel, or?
I was part of the previous team, and I think the Circles was not meant to be like that. I think it was really more thought from the community side of it. Like, instead of a speculating coin, it was more to be a tool to use for communities to do transactions rather than just being in a market and create a market of speculation. But it's very difficult to get to the global part because you will have to have a lot of communities first. Like, ideally, Circle will get popular in the communities, and eventually the communities will decide where will Circles go rather than the other way around. At least that's how Circles has been thought from the beginning. Really, really community driven.
I think also for the group part of Circles, Martin will give a talk tomorrow where he will bring up some more ideas what can be done with the groups. So I don't know the contents of the talk yet, but I'm pretty sure it will have groups in it. Any more questions? Did everybody manage to finish the code quest, or should I come around and do some debugging session? So I think we have plenty of time left. So if
On the first step, it's never registered to me.
oh, okay. Do you have an error message from Metam?
Just loading and then does nothing.
Sometimes, eventually it should, maybe to repeat the question for the stream, she had an issue where the button was just spinning at the sign up stage. And I think eventually it should settle. So sometimes it's like the fees are not enough when the chain might be congested. But I'm sure you have tried it again and the same happened.
Yeah, the same. The transaction also went through, and with different accounts, I don't know. This failed on the first step.
Oh, interesting. Let's check which step that was.
Check out the last range, calculate maximum transfer.
Can you check out the register at Circles?
Maybe after.
Oh yeah. True. Okay, so if there are no more questions, then I would stop the workshop here and see you outside and talk in person.